Hello and welcome back to this series of instructional videos on the Entopia simulation. For this particular section, we're going to talk about research and development, which is an important aspect of the Entopia game, since the sale of products, both batteries and smartphones or wheels and rollerblades or whatever game we're using, also involves a number of product improvements. Okay? So we have to assume that during the game that if you get a higher grade of product, since everybody starts with the ability to produce X0 and Y0, as you move through and make improvements, you can produce higher grades all the way up to grade 9. So if we assume higher grades mean higher prices and perhaps even higher margins, so that's a good thing for companies to try and chase. The other thing is that consumers, as they move on during the game, are going to demand higher grades. Just as you know, when you bought your first smartphone, whatever it was, mine was a Nokia. Now we've moved through several different versions of iPhones. Consumers begin demanding higher grades and more functionality for all sorts of different products. Okay? And research and development is one of those areas in which firms can develop a bit of a competitive advantage in the Entopia simulation by developing higher grades that are available for sale. Okay? So research and development is fairly simple. Essentially what you do is you put money into research and development. So you're going to budget and allocate certain dollars towards the development of X grades or the development of Y grades. And if you are successful, then you will get a patent to produce a higher grade. Now, a patent means that you essentially just have that knowledge to produce a higher grade. So if you do your own R&D, you're actually going to own that. Now, the term patent is a bit of a misnomer here in that, for instance, if you get grade 3 of X, so you have the X3 patent, it doesn't mean that you're the only team in the game that has that particular level. Other teams can also do their own R&D and also get a grade 3 patent. So it's very similar to, I guess you could say, the iPhone 7 being X or Y7 for Apple, and then Samsung having a version 7 of a phone too. So it's at a certain level or 7, but is a unique patent in its own right. Okay? So if you do have a patent, that means that you can produce that grade, and that your R&D activities are directed towards the next grade. So if I have a patent for Y3, that means that any R&D I do in the future will go towards getting Y4. Okay? So every team in the game can certainly do that R&D and move forward. And every team starts with X0 and Y0. So there is a possibility of 9 improvements in most games. Okay? Unfortunately, you are not available or able to do any grade skipping. So you can't move from, say, X3 to X5 by doing or spending more money, for instance. Everybody moves through incrementally. And you can get patents by R&D, or you can do so by licensing other teams. Okay? So one of the things that teams may decide to do is when they spend some money is license other teams, and we'll talk a bit more about licensing in another section. Okay? So money is directed at research and development in the home office, so that's one of the expenses that happens there. And this research and development, the money goes towards scientists' salaries and other activities. So in the data log, you'll see an estimate of how many scientists you need to actually be effective at R&D. Okay? As you spend more money, it's going to increase the probability of you getting a patent, but there is some randomness built into the game to reflect the fact that not all scientists are the same. For instance, some of them might have gone to MUN, some of them might have gone to Carleton, and I'll allow you to make your own inferences there. Okay? So there is some luck involved, just as there is in real life in terms of getting a patent. Okay, but once you receive a patent, then the team's probability is reset to 0. So you start all over again towards the next grade. So that means you can waste money on R&D. So for instance, if the program says that the value to get R&D is $5 million, and you spend 6, then you've essentially wasted $1 million on research and development. Now, there's a little bit of a trade-off there, because if you spend 5, there's a chance that you may not get it. Okay? But if you don't get it, you maintain your probability level so that there's a chance that next period you've got a much better chance at getting that. Okay? So the way the patent probabilities work in the game is there's a threshold probability that is set, and as you spend money, you will move up this threshold probability, or up this curve to try and get closer and closer to that probability function. Okay? Now this isn't necessarily linear. So in the data log it says, you need to spend at least X number of dollars in order to have any effect whatsoever. And then there's another point where it says, well, if you spend, say, 15 scientists worth, that means that it begins to diminish. So you'll see that the curve will actually go this way and start to drop off. Okay, so at that point, it doesn't mean that you're not being effective. It just means that you're not being as effective as you were in the first couple of spends. Okay, and this threshold probability moves for each team. Okay, so that's the random part that happens. So essentially, the computer rolls the dice and says, "All right, Team 4, you got to get up to 68% of this probability level," and then it rolls the dice separately for Team 35, and it says, "Well, you got to get to 70%." So that's where the randomness is built in. Now, through market research, you can order what other teams are spending on research and development and what patent levels they're at, so you can get a pretty good idea of how much you're going to spend in order to get to that threshold probability level. Okay? In the next couple of sections, we'll talk a little bit more about licensing and some other options that are available for you for research and development. But that pretty well sums up what we need to know about research and development for this stage.